What a fantastic conversation. Now to our very last segment of the morning. I was expecting a big ah. No? Yes? Oh, there we go. Thank you. And what better way to end the moonshot stage than to discuss the space industry? So our next fireside chat is with founders, both CDL alumni companies, who are pushing the boundaries of space development with innovations paving the way for future explorations. In conversation with Chairman and Managing Director at Carvalho Capital, Jason Carvalho, please give a round of applause for Chief Commercialization Officer at Providence Chain Network, Amy McDougall, and Founder and CEO of Magnestar, Jacqueline Good.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome everybody. Today we're exploring the fascinating world of space tech, a field that's about more than rockets and satellites. It's driving innovations that impact our daily lives, with a global space tech market expected to hit $1 trillion by 2040. This year marks significant milestones in space exploration. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Canadian Space Agency, or the CSA, a key player in international space missions. We also honor Marc Garneau, Canada's first astronaut whose historic spaceflight took place 40 years ago this month. Additionally, this year marks the 55th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, a landmark in human history, and the 25th anniversary of the International Space Station, symbolizing global cooperation and scientific innovation. In the past 5 years, over $42.8 billion in venture capital has flowed into space tech. In 2024 alone, the sector attracted $6 billion, reflecting growing confidence in space technologies. With us today are two leaders in that field. Jacqueline Good, founder and CEO of Magnestar, and Amy McDougall, Chief Commercialization Officer of Providence Chain Network. Let's dive deep into their journeys, and let's have some fun. Hi, Amy. Hi, Jacqueline. How are you today?
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Amy, I know you have some exciting news that you closed your Series A.
Yes, we
Fantastic.
did.
I'll give you a little
Thank
round
you.
of applause
Thank
for
you.
that.
We've all heard on the stage how difficult that can be. It's a difficult time right now to raise money, so we feel extremely fortunate. And we raised a total of $10.5 million. And I would call it, it's kind of generous that we call it a Series A. I kind of call it a super seed. It was not an institutionally priced round. It was all private investors and family offices. But we're super excited about that, and we have a great vision, and we're hard at work.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I'd love for both of you to walk us through just the history of your companies. What do you do? What are you currently working on? And we can go from there.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Very nice to thank you all for being here. It's really exciting to be on a moonshot stage, and we're going to dive into some details about the work that we're doing in space and how we work on the moon. Very excited about that. I founded Magnestar about 3 years ago now. It'll be 3 years in December, and we've had a phenomenal first 3 years. We raised capital, grew the team, won several awards for our industry. We were awarded a defense contract, worked through several commercial contracts. And now we're looking at the next stage of how we're going to go into this next chapter of the company. We focus on signal connectivity for satellite systems. So we map and monitor the communications between Earth and space to ensure that satellite systems have clear pathways of communication, which is critical for all infrastructure that we rely on here on Earth, be it GPS navigation systems. Anybody who took an Uber today, including myself, relied on GPS connectivity coming from space. If you're taking cell phone calls, that backhaul network is through space. Every time you tap a credit card or any kind of machine, those are financial verification systems that also go through space. Similarly, with early warning detection, fire warnings, anything like that is also monitored through space infrastructure. So this is exceptionally critical infrastructure, and the signal connectivity, making sure that is consistent, clear, and not interfered with, is what we do for our bread and butter and what we've brought to the space market over the past 3 years.
And Amy, the Providence Chain Network is using blockchain to enhance global supply chain transparency and security, dealing with defense and infrastructure. Love to double click further on that and what you folks are doing.
Yeah, we're accidental space and government contractors, honestly. We stumbled into it. So in our journey as a startup, we created the product with the vision that everybody has the fundamental right to know about the products they buy, use, and consume. And we also believe in data property ownership rights. So he or she who creates the data owns the data and should not have to share the data without explicit situational consent, comma, with consideration. So in other words, you would license all of your data. Imagine a world where that actually happens, where IP is protected, where you can do business without losing your business. It really helps protect the individual. So we are from Oregon, and if you look at the Oregon GDP, we actually looked at doing this for footwear and apparel and food, which is all the companies that kind of make up footwear and apparel, semiconductors, and space was not even on our radar. And the company started in 2019, and we're on our merry way. We've got a couple of customers in that space. And somebody had talked about, hey, you should probably look at being dual use, and have you considered doing this for the government? It's really important that they understand where their products come from. And I think the events over the past couple of weeks have unfortunately proven that out to be very true. And so we had gone and applied for an AFWorks. Well, actually, I'll tell you this story because I know there's a lot of founders in here. We found a partner to do this because we didn't have a lot of expertise in it by going through one of our local trade groups called Pacific Northwest Trade Defense. And we found someone. We just got up on stage and said, here's our vision, here's what we're looking to do, who can help us? And someone raised their hand, and they helped us write a grant, and we won an AFWorks grant. I think it was out of we down selected to 10 people out of 800. And so we won this grant, and so we were on our way, and then we ended up getting a sponsor, and we got a Small Business Innovation Research grant with the United States Space Force, and it was all to help them understand and validate all the components of their launch service provider. So that's working with SpaceX, Blue Origin, ULA, to make sure that any of the components on the rockets are as built. The as-built meet the engineering design specs. So, and luckily we did that because when the pandemic hit, all of those businesses we were working with was one of them was a wine company, and they turned to a situation where they couldn't even find bottles to put their wine in. So they definitely didn't have the appetite to work on a new technology. So that's how we became an accidental government and space contractor.
Love it. We talked about that term, dual-use technology. Jacqueline, do you want to maybe double-click on that and tell us a little bit more for people who are not familiar with that term, and why is it so relevant and so important to the development and growth of a space tech company?
Absolutely. So dual use refers to use or applications within commercial and defense. This has been a much larger topic in the space sector over, I would say, the last 5 years. Last week, we were at Spacebound in Ottawa, one of the largest space conferences in Canada. I am a Toronto-based company, so really thrilled to be representing Toronto on the space global stage. But one of the things that came up during that conference, as well as subsequent meetings afterwards, was that dual use and how so many commercial operators or commercial space operators need to have both equipment that is feasible for defense and for commercial entities. I think that what Amy was referring to there on supply chain, though, has become even more critical, because what makes space very unique is that space is technically a defense domain, meaning that any investor that I take on, any sourced part that I use, any software in terms of libraries and whatnot, I have to ensure is built and supplied by an ally nation, especially when it comes to investors. So we actually end up saying no to a lot of entities to protect our ability to work in defense, because that's one of the goals of our company, is to support the Canadian defense sector and to ensure that we have safety here at home. And that's been brought up time and time again in terms of dual use. And even when we were at some of the sessions last week, it was highlighted that because so many of the commercial entities are now supplying support to military and defense operations, the entire term of what a military object is also changing. If I have a space satellite system that is supplying Earth observation data, 911 services, all these services that humans and regular civilians rely on here on Earth, but is also providing defense support, all of a sudden that object is no longer just a commercial object, it's a military object, which puts it into a different classification in how wars and international affairs play out. So it's a really interesting time, I would say, in the space, and how we're navigating those challenges, and continuing to grow the space sector under that lens.
We have one of our third questions is space tech can often feel distant or require highly specialized people to get into it. What's it really like to work in the sector, given all the changes, the socioeconomic changes, the changes in defense and security over the last 24 months?
Well, have you ever felt like being the dumbest person in the room? That's what it's like to work with people in space. And I'm referring to we were part of the CDL space stream, and we had people in the room like Jeff Thornburg, who's one of the top propulsion experts on the planet. Maybe there's half a dozen other people like him. He's built rockets for every billionaire you can imagine who's in space, right? He's amazing. He's launching his own company right now. And then we have Chris Hadfield, who's actually an investor in our company. Will just run through like the calculations of something right in front of you, like this, like, oh, that's not possible with this gravity and that, and you're just like, this is so amazing. So and I think that's true of a lot of other fields, but as the saying goes, you're actually working with rocket scientists. However, they absolutely look at business in the same way, right? So they still have, and in space, you still have the same challenges. I just think it's a little bit different because people are talking in terms of when they get their TRL, technical readiness level, sometimes that involves how do you hitch a ride on a rocket. So there are some nuances there with folks in the space industry, but I would say don't be intimidated by it. It's just, it's the same business acumen that you would use in anything else. So it's a great industry. It's growing. And I know AI gets a lot of buzz, but space is pretty cool right now. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, with $6 billion deployed this year alone, it's clearly an emerging sector. Currently, how do you deal with the requirement for talent gathering? Talent is a big issue right now. We have companies that are laying off talented people, and then emerging companies like your own. Can you maybe speak a little bit to your thoughts on acquisition of talent, Jacqueline?
Absolutely. Specifically because we work in the spectrum sector, radio frequency spectrum, it's a very high in-demand skill set. Anybody out there who's going to school, looking for something they might want to do in their lives. Spectrum experts tend to make around $300,000 to $500,000 a year. They spend a month of the year in Geneva. They travel the world. They debate these very high critical topics about how world spectrum is going to be distributed. And for those reasons, for a startup, it is challenging to hire those types of individuals because they have such secure jobs and they're so high in demand. And so I think that we see that. I think that obviously being a startup, we position ourselves to the opportunity, the equity at play, how we are changing the face of how this work is being done around the world. And that's how we've managed to be successful is a lot of those folks actually do have larger ambitions. They got into space because they have this incredible drive. And that's what I find in terms of what it's like to work in space is you're surrounded by very ambitious people, very intelligent people. And space tends to be a merit-based ecosystem. It doesn't matter what you look like or where you come from. If you have something of value to bring to the ecosystem, space is so hard that we are more than happy to have your ideas, and if you can help us solve the problems at a faster rate, all the power to you. We're happy to have you on board. I think that's one of the really unique things about space as well is, again, just being merit-based. The other thing I would say to your previous question about what it's like to work in the space sector, it's been the ride of my life, being a part of this sector. It's been absolutely amazing. When we were at the World Radio Conference this past December, I got to be a part of the 20-person team that was crafting the first radio regulations and understanding how radio spectrum was going to be used on the moon. And that's such an incredible opportunity to forge a brand new ecosystem, a brand new economy, a brand new planet, and how we're actually going to be a brand new moon, and how we're going to be using spectrum and coordinating spectrum. And that was specifically because multiple national administrations of spectrum had asked that we do what we've done between Earth and space and apply it to the moon and bring the same technology to the moon. So that's incredibly exciting. It's just really new frontier tech, and it is a moonshot. So we're really excited about that, and I would encourage anybody in the audience who wants to work in space that there's room for everybody.
And just for the audience, this is the first time in human history where you could go directly from a university or from another sector and kind of jump right into building a space technology company. The track before was you'd have to spend 20 years maybe in academia or part of NASA, or maybe you'd worked for the government. Now you can actually jump in. Amy, your organization supports not only space technology offline, terrestrial terrain focus, as well as in orbit. Can you speak more to the on-terrain, the Earth applications of your technology, and how you as Chief Commercialization Officer are dealing with the challenges and opportunities that you're facing now that you've closed your Series A?
Yeah, yeah, and I want to just follow up on one thing on talent, and I'll tell you about our Earth applications. It sounds like we're talking about a sci-fi movie. So for talent, we've been very fortunate because we have such a strong vision. Like, people really can get behind that vision. Who doesn't want to know, right, about the products they buy, use, and consume? Is that we've been able to hire most all of our developers all of them through referrals. So we've not had to pay any headhunter fees or anything like that. And we've been able to hire teams of 3. So if anybody knows anything about software development, your most efficient team is a team of 3 developers who've actually worked together. We've hired 3 of those teams. So we have seen monumental growth in our product and our product offering since then, which has been great. So just some things to think about when you approach hiring your talent. Is have a strong vision and try to look for those groups of people. If you find someone you love, who do they know and who do they love working with, and see if you can get them to come on over. So how we apply our technology on Earth is we help people secure their supply chains. You can't secure what you don't see and what you don't know, and doing that in a supply chain is really difficult. So it's fairly easy for us to do that in other sectors. One of the ones, we just won a National Institute of Science and Technology Award from the CHIPS Act in North America, where they're onshoring, nearshoring, right? It's not everything's going to be in the US, it's going to be in Canada and Mexico and Costa Rica. And they're investing $52 billion in doing this. But we were one of the small businesses that were awarded the NIST Metrology Award for semiconductors. Just, I think it was announced last week. I was just on Capitol Hill. So that's one way we're applying it, is what are the key artifacts that you need to track when you produce a chip along the way, so that you can help improve that process and share and collaborate, and our technology is going to help allow folks to do that. So that's one way. It's applicable anywhere where you have a supply chain that's high liability and you want to secure it.
We're approaching 2 minutes here. One of the final questions that we have, I know both of you sat in on the recent academic panel. One of our questions here was related to advice for aspiring founders and academic collaboration. What advice would you give to aspiring founders looking to transition from academic research into the space sector? And for the academics in the room, how can they best collaborate with industry or startups to ensure their research has real-world impact? And Jacqueline, I know we saw a panel at Spacebound last week in Ottawa talking a bit about that. So I'll pass it over to you to start.
Absolutely. Yes, we've worked with several academic institutions in building the technology that we've been bringing to market. I find that for the university folks in the room, it's really beneficial for any commercial company, especially early stage startups, to work with academia. It supports our applications when we're applying for funding, whether that be through commercial opportunities or through investor relationships. So I think that we see it as a very strong positive to have academia associated with our company. I would say that to your question on aspiring founders as well, there has never been a better time to get into space. You mentioned that the International Space Station is coming up on one of its anniversaries, and they're retiring the International Space Station in 2030, but there are multiple commercial entities building new space stations for people like you and I to go to space on a recurring basis. And there's going to be, within our lifetime, a long-term settlement and habitat on the moon. That's incredibly exciting. So I would say, like, it's time to push the envelopes of what's possible, and attaching to these really strong possibilities of what's actually in currently production, being built and has been funded and is in the works, and backed by both the commercial entities within venture networks as well as within government, that these new projects are coming to light, and then we are pushing the boundaries of what we previously thought was possible. And so it's a really, really exciting time.
Yeah, I would add a little more practical advice to anybody coming from academia, because we're working with quite a few institutions on how you apply, like, for example, oracles to products, so that your digital twin actually matches up with the actual thing to prove that, dendrites, all that cool stuff. There's some new words for you. So one of the things I realize is that obviously patenting your idea is super important, right? And I think there's a whole play for how the average Joe patent or Jane patent their ideas. But you should go through whatever proper patent ideas there are if you're an academia and you have a great idea. And then the second one is when you start to engage with the company is really consider and understand where you need a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, as well as when you start talking with them, how do you formulate an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, so that you are really clear on what the roles are. You know, we bring this to the party, they bring this to the party, this is why we're collaborating, this is what we intend to do, this is how we're going to monetize the situation. If you can get those building blocks in place, you're going to ensure that you have a great relationship. Yeah.
5 seconds. Space is hard. What do you say to that as we close? There's a saying, space is hard. What do you say to that?
But it's worth it.
That's
I stole yours.
Okay. Let's give a round of applause
So
to
worth
these
it.
two amazing builders.
Thank you.
Please support, follow their work. Congratulations, Amy. Congratulations, Jacqueline.
Thanks,
Thank you
Stacey.
so much. Thank you so much.